Hey guys, about a month ago I picked up this Primo frame kit from Gnarly FPV, and I got some parts together and I want to go ahead and put this together. So let's go ahead and take a look at what comes in the package real quick. There's quite a bit of stuff in here, it's pretty nice. You can see I haven't really gone into it yet. So you get the frame. Frame is designed to take the Whoop style motors, these little guys right here that take the 3-hole, I don't really know what the whole pattern is, but all the brushless Whoops are basically the same as far as that's concerned. It has a mount for the Whoop style flight controllers, and it's nice 3D printed. They've got these embedded threaded inserts, which are really nice. It seems like a very nicely put together frame. I think this kit was $19, so I'm pretty impressed with that. You get 4 of the propellers. These are the 65mm King Kong style. I'm not sure if these are actually the King Kong props or not. I've got some real ones I can compare them to later. And then down here in the bottom, get a bunch of cool parts. We get some screws, get some camera mount stuff, and some different battery holders. These are probably for 2 1S batteries, a couple for different 2S setups. I'm going to be running this hopefully with this 2S 450. I don't think, well, it'll fit in there, but just barely. So I may have to 3D print my own battery holder for that. I may not run this, I'm not sure. It depends on how the weight turns out. I'd originally gotten these for a Toothpick build, but the Toothpick frame took forever to come and I ended up canceling my order. I think those have actually shipped now. So, comes with a canopy for, looks like a 19mm wide camera, and then not sure if this is an adapter for a smaller camera. We'll get into it. So, and then some other bits and pieces and some screws. Other things I'm going to use, I've got a Crazy Bee F4 flight controller. This is what would be in the trash can. I've also got an all-in-one camera with smart audio. This is what would be in the US UK 65. I really like this camera for what it is. And then I'm going to be running these Beta FPV motors. These are the 0802 1750 kV. I'm not sure if these are the ideal motor for this build. Probably not, but this is what I have, so it's what I'm going to try and run. First thing I'm going to have to do, unfortunately, is these motors do not have long enough wiring to quite reach the flight controller. They're just a tiny bit short, so I'm going to have to go through and extend the wiring on all 4 of these motors. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now off camera. Alright guys, so the first challenge I ran into on this was getting the flight controller mounted. I couldn't find any instructions on what screws are supposed to be used for what, etc., etc. So what I ended up doing was I took a couple of the rubber grommets that are designed for the flight controller. They're longer. There's one shorter one that comes with the package, but I only have one. Took these longer ones, I cut them down, and then I used the longest M2 screws to mount them, to rubber mount the flight controller. That seems pretty solid. I wanted to get this mounted because I needed to know how much I need to extend my motor wires by. So I finally got this mounted, got that figured out. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get those motor wires extended, and then we'll get the motors mounted up, and then we'll move on from there. Alright, well that's all 4 motors wiring extended and all 4 motors mounted. Now unless you've got a good soldering setup and a lot of patience and or maybe a little bit of a masochist, I wouldn't suggest going this route. Soldering all these little extensions on was a real pain. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I'm not looking forward to ever doing it again. So maybe just try to get a set of motors like the Mobula motors that have long enough wires to begin with. I went with these because that's what I had. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the power wire on. I'm going to use an XT30, not the power wires that came with the flight controller. So I'm going to go ahead and make up that XT30 wiring and get that connected because I want to test this out and make sure that these motors actually spin up before I go any further. Just a quick tip, when you're soldering these XT connectors, go ahead and plug the opposite side connector into whatever one you're soldering. That'll act as a heat sink and make it a lot less likely to melt the plastic as you're soldering. Alright, got the power connector hooked up here. So I'm just going to plug in this 2S and do a quick smoke test. Let's see what happens. Okay, well, that seemed pretty good. Nothing blew up. It sounded like at least a couple of the motors were beeping. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get my transmitter, and we're going to get this bound up and see if the motors all spin. Alright, so got everything set up in Betaflight. Let's go ahead and test these motors. I don't really care which way they spin because I'm just going to go into BL Heli and reverse the ones that are wrong. I'm going to run props out probably. I just want to make sure all 4 of them are spinning. So let's arm it, and yeah, they're all spinning. And some weird delay. It's interesting. Alright, well, I'll have to mess around with that. Well, they're all spinning, which means that part's working, so I'm going to go ahead and get the camera mounted and wired up. I use this little sleeve that they provided. It fit over the Eachine camera. I did have to heat it up a little bit to get it to fit in here. I'm not super thrilled with the fit, but I think it'll work. I may make my own mount at some point, but it'll work for now. But I got to get this wired up to the flight controller and then get it mounted, and then I'll go ahead and reverse those motors that are backwards, and we'll go from there. Alright, well, she's all put together. So what do I think so far? I think it's a really cool design. I really like the way that they've done a lot of the engineering and the metal inserts and everything. I don't like the way that the camera adapter for the all-in-one cameras are. This one barely fit on my camera. I think they're pretty much all the same, and also it's stuck at one angle. I can't tilt it down because of the way that the canopy hits it. But I know the canopy originally wasn't built for that, so we'll give them a pass on that. The 450, this is a GNV 450 battery. The 450 battery holder is incredibly tight. I'm going to have to put some heat on that and kind of loosen it up a little bit because I feel like I'm going to break something getting the batteries in and out of there. So I'm not used to this kind of high angle like this, but I'm going to take this outside and I'm going to give it a quick test flight, and I'll put some footage of that up, and then I'll come back and let you know my thoughts. Alright, so what do I think? So far I really like it. It seems like it's going to be a great little flyer. I've got some work I want to do to it. I want to move my camera angle down a tiny bit because it's a little high for the kind of flying that I do. I need to tidy up this wiring. Of course, there's some PID tuning to do. It's got some oscillations. When I first started flying it, I was having dropouts on the receiver and I didn't realize what was going on. I remembered before reading about people who were having problems with D16 on their FrSky transmitters and they had to use D8 instead. Well, that was the same problem here. I switched to D8, it works fine now, no problems. I still get my RSSI and everything, so that's the only telemetry I really care about anyway. So I think it's pretty cool. We'll see how long it holds up. I'm going to put some tape around these and you know, just tidy some things up. But it seems like it's going to be pretty quick, it's going to fly pretty good, and so far I'm happy with it. I'll give you guys an update in the future when I get a little bit more time on it and get the PIDs tuned up. But for now, thanks for watching. If you want to pick up one of these guys, I suggest doing so. The frame is cheap, and maybe you have a Mobula laying around that you want to try something different with. I think that these little guys are going to be probably pretty popular in the coming months. There's the Toothpick and then a bunch of other Toothpick clones. This, of course, is one of them. And I think a lot of people are going to start flying them, so you should too. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Bye.